All right, so not too long ago, Oprah came out because she was using the GLP-1s, and she realized that it wasn't that it was a lack of her uh, ability or uh, you know consistency or anything like that. That she was keep getting fat. It was that she had obesity gene. The obesity gene made her fat, and made the obesity gene made her overeat. Um, I don't necessarily know exactly what she meant by that. Um, I haven't talked to her about it. However, depending on how you look at it, there's some truth in that. So let's look at the somatotyping. So first of all, we all know somebody who can eat whatever they want to and they never get announced, right? And lots of times people are like, "Oh man, I wish I was that guy." Maybe, maybe not. I've talked to a lot of those guys who can't gain weight, they can't put muscle on, and they hate it. So they have their own little body dysmorphia issues they got to deal with. At the other end of the spectrum, the those guys who like watch you eat a donut and they get fat. So this goes back to what we call somatotyping. So the guys who can't gain weight are ectomorphs. The guys who can't lose weight are endomorphs. And the guys in the middle that just cut back on their food or manage their calories, those are your mesomorphs. And this goes to the idea that everyone's body is a little bit different and works a little bit differently. So what we have to understand, and this is where I get off on the whole calorie thing, is because each of the macros go to hormones, and hormones run your entire body. How sensitive you are to different hormones and whatnot affect how your body reuses them. And those hormone sensitivities can change over time, as we've all heard of insulin resistance versus insulin sensitivity and things like that. So when we make the statement that, overeating causes obesity, it always does. And that's a thing all the way around. The overeating piece, though, is actually different for each person. And certain people can eat all they want to of, say, protein, but they can't have any carbohydrates because the carbohydrates raise insulin and protein raises glucagon, and those two hormones are different. And so that's how they are. Now, obviously, there is an amount that each person can eat and not become obese. However, I've worked with people who have done fasting. They don't eat for a day or two, and they don't lose that much weight. And when they eat again, they kind of maintain it, and it doesn't seem to fit. And then you put these people on a GLP-1 or a GLP-3, so like semaglutide or Ozempic, retatrutide or whatever, and they lose a ton of fat because of the way, especially with retatrutide. Retatrutide's really, really great at this because it changes the hormonal function of what's going on in the body. And a lot of these people have told me that they're eating roughly the same amount, maybe a little bit less on some of these peptides, and they're losing a lot of weight. One of the big things that is controlled is snacking. So you look at the entirety of what's going on. A lot of times people can make better decisions, and so better decisions are always more beneficial. But at the same time, it's a hormonally based function. So are there people that are going to be heavy, especially in the society that we have with the chemicals in our food, water, and air, without the use of a GLP tool? Most likely, yes. Just like there's going to be people who are going to have low testosterone, just like people who are going to have low dopamine, just like people who are going to have, low iron. Like everyone's body chemistry is a little bit different. And so the idea that everybody's metabolic function is exactly the same is kind of laughable. So at the end of the day, it's always going to have to do with, discipline and self-control and that type of thing, kind of no matter where you are on the scale, on the play and on the somatotyping chart. But there's going to be a lot of people who we have to realize their body needs a different hormonal set than they're getting from whatever they're doing. And the idea that, everyone, if they just ate, this diet and did this exercise, everyone would get the same results and would lose all the body fat and gain all the muscle is not a thing that's happening. It's not a thing. It's always kind of funny because, people are like, well, they're on steroids. Guys, everyone is on steroids. Estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, like all of the hormones that drive your body are made from cholesterol, which makes them steroids. Steroids are made from sterols. And so everybody's on steroids. It's just, are you on the right amount for you? That's the question. And so that's kind of where a lot of this stuff comes in. So you look at the testosterone thing, you look at the estrogen thing, And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, these things matter tremendously. Right. Is your body producing genetically or from chemical, damage or whatever? Are you producing the right ratio of hormones? And one of the big things like retatrutide does is it balances the insulin glucagon ratio, allowing your body to even properly function, properly utilize fat again, and then kind of walk through this whole process. So the idea that no one needs a GLP and nobody needs insulin and no one needs testosterone is absurd. So like that would, and I realized that everybody's going, well, if they just ran my program right, they'd be totally fine. No, they won't. They won't, because that's how they're genetically set up. We look at people who have MTHFR deletions. If they just took folic acid, wouldn't they be fine? No, they can't convert folic acid into L-methyl tetrahydrofolate. So they have a genetic issue that's preventing this. So the more we learn about genetics, the more we learn about how everybody's body actually works, we start getting into physiology. Look at all the stuff we've learned. We're now trying to teach everybody about peptides, about mitochondrial function and ATP genesis, and the citric acid cycle and cytokine storms, and mTOR and cyclic AMPK, like all the things. We're like, oh my gosh, now the chemistry, you guys are going to listen about chemistry, and we're all geeking out about it. But that's the thing. Like, not everybody's levels of everything are where they're supposed to be, or where they're most beneficial. Let me put it that way. So, there is a place for testosterone. There is a place for estrogen. There is a place for, supplementing with a GLP-3 or a GLP-1. These things are highly beneficial to people's health as we go through. Now, obviously, there's abuse of every single type of system and things like that. And people take it too far, and I get it. And some of the providers don't necessarily know what they're doing metabolically, and I get it. But I think what Oprah said has some truth to it, that there's a lot of people, and I work with these people all the time. They come in and they're crying and they're all messed up, and they're just like, I've tried everything, and everyone just tells me I'm not running the program right, and I'm cheating, and I'm overeating, and I'm lying. That's not what I'm doing. Like, I'm doing everything. You're right. And I pull their labs, and I'm like, well, here's why. Like, your insulin's too high, your testosterone's too low, and you've got, these 3 or 4 other issues going on. We correct those, and then they go back to eating a somewhat decent diet, and the fat comes off, the muscle comes on, and they start getting healthy, and everything starts working better. So there's a lot of that stuff that we kind of need to understand. The body is amazing. Its design is unbelievable. There's lots of little things that can get in there and mess with it. And so a lot of people, not everyone's body is the same. I keep trying to hammer this point in. So there are some people who are going to need different types of things to different types of health. So I don't think we should be shaming people for it. I don't think we should be, pushing people around for it. Because if you find the thing that gets you where you need to go, well done. Well done. Like, some people are like, don't you think that people should be natural bodybuilders? No. And I respect what they've done. They've eaten really well, and they've worked out really well, and they've managed their sleep, and that's fantastic, and it's worthy of praise. However, the guy who's had to use really weird diets and had to use peptides and had to use some things to figure out how to make their body work, I respect those guys more. Just because they're like, here's the 18 things I had to learn about to get my body where it was supposed to go. I'm like, that's more impressive to me. You had a longer journey. Like, you had to learn more. You had more obstacles to overcome. You had more things to deal with. That's more impressive to me. That's me. Maybe you feel differently. But that was one of those things I wanted to kind of bring up, that, people are giving Oprah a whole bunch of crap about it, but you've got to understand everyone's body is a little bit different. And, we've seen amazing things. Like, people who are on pretty decent diets. Like, I'll look at them and be like, that's actually pretty solid. And they're 20 pounds overweight. You toss them on like a retatrutide, and all of a sudden all their stuff starts balancing and weight comes off, and they're able to maintain it, and they're great. So, don't be worried about it. If you're trying to find out some information about this, you're thinking about, maybe doing it for yourself. There's a lot of things that not just the weight coming off and looking better. There's a ton of health function with reducing visceral fat, reducing all the adipose tissue, bringing down like all the metabolically active visceral fat stuff, removing a fatty liver, resetting your insulin sensitivities, massive, massive beneficial changes health-wise. So don't let people like push you around or say bad things about using GLP-1s or GLP-3s. As long as you're using them properly, it can be a massive game changer for your overall health and quality of life. So Think about that. If you guys have any questions, hit us up, questions@chalmerswellness.com. Have a fabulous day. Thanks for your time.